So I think the perception of the public about news broadcasting and network news has changed. When I was just on the network, fresh, having spent my apprentice year on the local station in Virginia, and I was on the CBS network in Washington, and I realized I'd be doing all these things, telling people what the senators were doing in front of me or the one sitting across the table from me, and I thought, well, how do I know they'll believe me? And I realized that the only way we could ever get along is if we had an unbreakable contract, never to be besmirched, that I would tell the truth and never anything but the truth about what I saw, what was going on, and so that people would eventually, the public would come to know that when radio said it, it was true. Unfortunately, it wasn't all 100% true always, but I made that sort of one-sided contract in my own mind just because it seemed like the only way the industry could survive, and I still do feel that way, and I think it's essential that this that it should be that way, despite the lapses from time to time. And otherwise, I suppose the part of the denigration that the people are giving to television news is part of the general attack on the news people, the general attack in general. Mm-hmm. That's a good locution, but that's part of the disillusionment that large portions of the public are now having with about news in general. Don't you think that seems to be true too? And television naturally is not going to escape that. So it's all part of it, and shouldn't escape it, I suppose, if it's true. But I think a lot of that has been exaggerated too. But then, when President Kennedy decided to have the news conferences televised and totally changed their character, so that we have all these people on camera sitting in rows instead of anonymous figures around the president's desk asking questions, it all becomes changed at once. They're required, they feel, by their offices back at the Home Office to get up and show themselves on the camera and ask a question. It isn't the same thing at all anymore. It's not can you imagine the president doing what President Roosevelt said he would do from time to time and give the reporters background information for them only? They weren't to print it, but it would help them to understand better what the government was trying to do. A very worthy object, I think. Impossible now. And I don't think that President Kennedy, in naturally wanting to modernize everything, including that, I don't think he really did a long-lasting favor. I think we could have a little swing back, not maybe with every news conference, but in some way to some of those times before that lent themselves more easily to ideals. For example, President Reagan, he didn't invent this, but President Reagan going on the air every Saturday on radio, every Saturday. As I was telling you earlier, President Roosevelt, I don't remember the numbers of times, but to do the famous fireside chats just went on very few times a year, maybe a couple in some years. And here's a president on every Saturday. He's there informally. He's wearing a sweater, a cardigan, puts his arms around people. People say, pose with me. Everybody goes up and has a picture taken with the president. So when I left Washington to come to New York in 1935, I was told the White House wanted to do something very nice for me as a favor. And I was presented with a photograph of President Roosevelt very formally sitting at his desk and at no microphones. And underneath it said, to Bob Trout from his friend, Franklin D. Roosevelt. And that was considered really something. And here, as I say, anytime you want your picture taken with a president, just show up at the White House as a member of the broadcast or radio team on any Saturday morning, you know. Right. The world's changed. What can we do?